Thank you for inviting me to be with you today. I'm sorry I can't be there live. I don't have an internet connection, so I figured I'd share this with you instead. In order to break with the past and move into a just future, which includes all of us, we must first come to an agreement that everything we have tried up until this moment has, in one way or another, failed. Elsewise, we wouldn't be in the position we are today, needing to have this conversation. We wouldn't be having to fight the same battles that our grandparents won 50 and 100 years ago. Although many, if not all of us, are also activists and organizers outside of this room, we are first and foremost poets, artists, and thinkers. And that means our job before anything else is to envision that better future we seek and the pathways to get there. To do that, we must be constantly reevaluating what works and what doesn't work, and more importantly, what it is we believe to be true. Although I would hope we can all agree that we seek a world which is just and equitable for everyone, regardless of the conditions of one's birth, that regardless of one's gender, beliefs, or identity, we all deserve bodily autonomy and the basics of life which sustain our well being, so that we may all have that freedom we seek to live lives that reach our greatest potentials. To that, those basics, that foundation we all require, which in no way should be commodified for profit, are food and housing, education and healthcare, transportation and energy. Now, there are those who will say that this is utopian, that it's a nice dream that maybe someday far off in the future, when those alive today are all dead, there may be a world where there is such justice, just not now. Well, I say they're wrong. Everything we need to provide all of this exists in plenty today. All the housing we could ever need is sitting vacant all around us, while hundreds of thousands of people sleep homeless on the streets. All the food we require to feed every person on this planet is there in plenty, while we pay farmers to destroy crops in order to keep the prices high for those who can afford it. All the teachers and institutions of learning are already there waiting to share their knowledge. Yet we structure it so our educators and students alike are riddled with so much poverty and debt that they can barely survive, so that a handful of private interests can be filthy rich. And for healthcare, it's exactly the same. As for transportation and energy, what already exists built on our tax dollars could be made free to the general public today. And what infrastructure we need to upgrade, that could furnish an entire generation with well paying jobs. Yet, I can hear the mantra now: how are you going to pay for it? The simple answer is the same way that we have unlimited financing to pay for war. So far, I don't believe I've said anything surprising. However, it's time to examine some of the far reaching and what might be considered radical strategies and steps we must take in order to reach those truly achievable goals. First, in the short term, I think for the most part, the true left among us can agree that we do not have two political parties in the United States, or for that matter, genuine opposition between the dominant political parties throughout the Western world. What we have is a duopoly and deception between two sides of one political machine whose differences for the most part are purely rhetorical and window dressing, designed to divide an otherwise united working class from obtaining the policy goals we seek to improve all of our lives. Over the last 40 plus years, the Democrat Party has acted as a barrier and a stopgap to protect a Republican agenda, normalizing the most radical far right policies while roadblocking any advancement from a true leftist movement. How did we get to the point where progressives have suddenly become pro war? Many are not going to like what I have to say next, but we allowed ourselves to fall into a Republican led trap in coordination with a neoliberal Democrat Party that has, for the last 18 years, focused solely on dividing us based on identity. Identity politics has gutted a once united leftist movement. Instead of demanding policy positions that help all of us from political candidates, we have structured and rallied around those whose mirror reflection best fits ourselves and the demographics of those traditionally excluded from our political debate, but whose policy positions merely reinforce a right leaning status quo. In 2004, it was the Republicans who led with an attack on gay marriage, not because they cared about gay marriage, but because there was a strong and united anti war movement that was looking to defeat George W. Bush and reverse the course of war that he set us on. Ever since, the left has fractured into 1,000 pieces to put demographics over policy. That's how we got Obama, who, after promising us everything, only continued to bail out Wall Street while expanding the wars until it became so normal that the rank and file Democrats suddenly became the cheerleaders for what they had once stood united against. And today, Biden is merely carrying on the tradition of funneling all our national resources into funding new proxy wars to a chorus of yays from sheep posing as progressives. So, in the short term, we need to break with identity politics to back those with the best policy positions, whether those candidates look like us or not. But that in itself is not good enough. Representative democracy, ruled by election, has utterly failed us. For unchecked money and insider manipulation of primary elections has completely decimated our electoral system to the point that we see it as a miracle if anyone who is decent breaks through all the obstacles set in their path, and that as soon as they get into power, they get comfortable and start compromising too. So I say, if representative democracy has failed us, it's time for direct democracy to take its place. And that means, in the long term, we need to abolish elections altogether and move to a lottery based system whereby anyone of a certain age can be selected at any time to serve one term in office with no special privileges, no lifetime pensions, or corporate lobbyist positions on the back end waiting for them. That, as a public service, you do your job for a set number of years and then leave it having to live with the consequences of the policies you set in place, just like everyone else. What we would vote on instead would be the policy priorities that this new body would have to work on in their time in office so that they don't get to set their own work agenda, but we do as an entire population. Now, the immediate backlash we will hear is that the average person is too stupid to make such important decisions. We here may even agree with that statement. So, the first thing that would happen in such a new configuration is that we would make education the top priority for the nation. We would make sure that everyone in the country received a good education so that no one would be too delinquent to serve. The second pushback we will hear is that extremists will get into power, as if they're not already there. It's true, we would get such a cacophony of voices and perspectives that it would truly be an honest representation of who we are as a people. And like a true democracy, it will be slow and messy at first. But there are more than two narrow sides of a sliver in this world, and once real people come together who have to live with the consequences of their actions, we will see much better policies come about as a result of those debates than what we have today, which is controlled primarily for the benefit of those who are obscenely rich, who don't care about the well being or the future of this planet. The only caveat I would make is that this service would be voluntary, that anyone who wishes to opt out may do so. And this is how we break the control of the corporations and their two-party monopoly over our lives. As cultural workers, the best way we can help advance these strategies is to let these ideas resonate within the work we are already doing. For our main job, as always, is to provide the vision for our greater organizational movement. Thank you.